actually, and we all joked about it on when we did like a short prep call, was that 15 minutes is by no means going to be enough for this discussion, but it is a really important discussion because we're having a lot of regulation being implemented, and there are already industries like pharma that are highly regulated industries and that are looking at figuring out how to integrate these very, very exciting and new technologies. So I'm really pleased to welcome this next panel to the stage. And leading this discussion is Alfred Poor, who is the editor of Health Tech Insider and produces a fantastic newsletter that you must sign up for. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I would like to welcome Lynette Cook from Cantor and Manny Montalvo.
Close enough.
Close enough. From Teva. And we're going to try to cram a whole lot of geography into a very small square piece of turf here. But the issue is that digital health has been moving so quickly. 10 years ago, if you told me that the FDA would be approving software running on smartphones as treatment for medical conditions, I would have laughed at you. And yet it's a fact today. And as we've seen in other fields, technology does have a way of running away from us and getting out in front of the practices, but way out in front of legislation and regulation and so forth. So we're facing a really complicated situation, and it's not that we want to put the genie in the bottle, but we also don't want the genie to run amok. So how do you view this whole digital health and its impact on patients? I know you've shared with me an amazing white paper that's got some fantastic research about this. So what would you share on that?
Well, since we don't have 45 minutes, I'll try to make that a quick answer. The research paper that Alfred just mentioned will be available tomorrow, so there is another presentation on that. I'd say that the biggest thing that we're doing right now is really trying to understand the patient as a person. So the great news is, which you've been hearing all throughout the day, is there's so much data. There's almost too much data. And we're trying to figure out how do we personalize the data? How do we use that in a personal way to reach the patients, to reach them at the right time? We're calling it modes with some work that we're doing with Teva, because every patient, even though they have the same diagnosis, they will have a different mode. Every day they'll be in a different mode, and the way we communicate to them needs to be tailored to that. So personalized medicine is not just about the cocktail that is prescribed. But all the data, bringing it back to the question about data, the data helps you to predict what are the most impactful behavioral nudges that will get that patient to do something different, to behave differently toward their health, whether it's prevention or taking their medicine.
So there are few fields where we can talk about this being a matter of life and death, aside from medicine, right? And so we have people's lives at stake. It's quality of life and at great expense with healthcare and all. Manny, you live in a world of regulation and jumping through hoops, and I assume on a multinational basis, trying to live up to the requirements of all the different things. What do you see as the appropriate role of regulating bodies on this digital health world that we're encountering?
I think one of the speakers mentioned this earlier. For us, it's very vital that we engage with the FDA or the regulatory authorities early on in the conversation, because they're going to want to see the data, how the data is used, how does it impact patients, privacy. There's a lot of different complex issues that have to be resolved. So the early engagement with the authorities for us is very critical, and that allows us to put a plan in place so that we can be able to address the questions from the regulatories early in the development program.
So one of the things that strikes me is walking around the floor, I'm seeing a lot more devices that are voice-enabled. Many of them based on Alexa, but others using other technology. And if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a minute of spoken word can can tell you a whole lot of stuff. They're diagnosing depression and other conditions just on voice sampling. So we've never had, the FDA doesn't regulate the use of voice data. It's not a pill, so they're not experienced in that sort of thing. What do you see as some of the pitfalls of the new technologies that we're using, such as voice, but the others as well, and how do we protect patients from some of those pitfalls?
Well, if I go back to the comment about, one size doesn't fit all. And it's fabulous that we have all the digital tools, and we need to think about how can we create the right voice to reach the patient in the mode that they need. So let's say, for example, you're in a household and 2 adults have type 2 diabetes. We can use some of the voice-enabled tools to deliver some of those behavioral nudges that I mentioned earlier. But what I need would be very different than what my husband would need, the time of day. So I envision a world where we have a smart home and the lighting is adjusted, to your needs, your nudges of when to take your medication, based on your shopping data, tells you, how to create the right diet, based on your blood sugar from the day before. And that's all reaching me in the right mode at the right time. But the voice is also important, because we see from, you mentioned we learned from other technologies. GPS, we can choose. What makes you choose one voice over another, or someone with an accent, male or female? And I might need a voice that says, take your medication. And then, someone else in my household might need something, where that nudge is a little bit more, subdued.
I don't see the data as much of a pitfall, because I think we're still gathering. We're in this mode where we're just gathering a lot of information. I think the pitfall comes if we're not able to tie it back to a meaningful outcome to either the patient or a meaningful outcome to the payer system or to the government. So for us, we spend a lot of time in analyzing that data. What does it really mean, and how does it impact each of the different customer segments that we're going to have to serve and speak to as we roll out these different products in the future?
Right.
Sorry,
just the data that you had mentioned, we do see that there's an increase in, and obviously everybody knows, there's an increase in adoption of the various tools, but a very small percentage genuinely believe that it's improving their health. And then even when you continue that conversation, they don't really know how to describe what does health improvement mean.
Exactly.
So if we can't measure a health outcome, then payers aren't going to endorse it. Physicians certainly won't. We won't get past the regulatory hurdles.
Got it. So, but we sort of are on the verge of getting into who owns the data, which is a whole big topic in itself. And to this point, we've let the free market pretty much judge. And to be frank, a lot of the things we have and enjoy and use all the time wouldn't have happened if the developers hadn't been able to monetize the use of that data. Is this an area that should be regulated? Is this a proper role for the government to step in, or maybe some professional association to step in and say, this is how data should be handled, this is what you can and can't do with an individual's health records?
I have a lot of colleagues that would spend hours on that similar topic there. This is just my personal opinion. I think the regulations that exist are there to help us and prevent the misusage of data. So I actually see it as a very positive thing. And that we have to find the right balance between too much government and regulations versus not having it at all, and being a free-for-all where our data can be used for a variety of different reasons. We're already collecting so much healthcare information. You can imagine people are concerned about, what if my employer gets this, right? Or it falls into the wrong hands. Do I really want that data out there? And I think that's the balance that we have to figure out on how to regulate it and also use it to help improve patient outcomes.
Lynette, do you think patients are at the point now, I mean, we've had the Facebook scandals, do you think patients are at the point now where they're even thinking about the implications of their health records and their health information?
The research that we've seen show that there's still a high level of naivete around what information is even being collected, where and how, and the number of patients that don't even realize that their physicians are now, have moved to electronic health records. So I agree that, that it's a topic that, will go on for quite some time. We do need more transparency. We need a lot more transparency around what is being collected, and we have to, stop making it so mysterious. So somehow we have to translate things so that the physician and the patient and the payer and all the other stakeholders, those of us in the room, can have the same conversation.
And yet do that in a way that doesn't stifle innovation.
Right. That's right.
And doesn't, discourage companies like your two from collaborating on the kinds of projects. The one question I have that sort of has been lurking in the back of my mind, and again, who would have thought that smartphone apps could be medical devices, and yet now they are. Is there a thalidomide hiding in digital health somewhere that we just haven't seen yet? Have seen the law of unintended consequences come back to bite us over and over and over again. Is there a risk out there that we should be concerned about? Is there something more that we should be doing to protect ourselves? And how do you think that should happen?
Yeah, I don't, personally, my personal opinion on this is that we're still at the very beginning stages of it, and the technology and healthcare and value outcomes-based models, it's all very exciting and where it's headed. I think the way that we integrate the data and the tools, whether it's the hardware, the software, and how we're collecting the data, for me, those are the exciting things. And the next 5-10 years from now, we'll be sitting here having a complete different discussion, not about where we are today, but where we should be going, and really improving people's lives on a daily basis. And that's what I think the technology will enable us to do.
I think we just also have to be careful of setting the wrong expectations. That even if we bring all these data together, we find a way to overcome the regulatory hurdles. We're able to create some predictive analytics and personalize the care as well as the communication. We have to make sure that we don't set the expectation that everybody's going to live to be 110, 115 years of age, or that the system is going to shrink in how much care will be needed, and we're all going to save lots of money. So I think we have to be careful. I do believe that there's tremendous opportunity, for...
Don't oversell it on that hype cycle.
Right,
there.
exactly.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, one of the things I've been saying is that 5 years ago, when I came here, if you breadboarded something and put it on a wristband, you had a product. Today, if you don't have clinical trials backing up what your product does and how it presents a real benefit, you don't have a product yet. And so I'd take a lot of encouragement from this trend where good science is now a part of a good product. What do you see as a hopeful trend that we can close on here?
For me, the trend that I'm excited about is what you mentioned, and that's the inclusion of clinical trials and data using that technology. So in the past, you'd have wearables that kind of are more, for lack of a better word, lifestyle. They're tracking steps and heart rates and whatnot. And then you have the other side of it where physicians are using it to monitor drug-to-drug interactions and using more of the information regarding the products. What I'm excited about is this convergence of those two endpoints where the data now becomes applicable, and we're actually doing things that can improve the quality of medicine, so that maybe people don't have to take so much medicine in the future, right? Or not hop from one drug to the other drug because they're not sure, the physician isn't sure whether the medicines are being effective or not. So I think that convergence of that data for me is what's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to it as we continue to evolve.
I think that the diversity of the players, if you look around the room and the fact that everybody here has a different lens from which we're all trying to tackle the same issue of how do we improve health outcomes, that 30 years ago everything was so regimented in how we were developing pharmaceutical products or medical devices, and now with the disruptors from a technological standpoint, our opportunities are much wider.
It's a very frothy and exciting market, and I am so excited to be a part of that and to have a front row seat on a lot of this. I thank you both for your time and for sharing this information. I hope this has been helpful, and look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.